Hey, everybody. Welcome to Be That Lawyer Live. Really happy that you're joining us. If it's your first time hearing the podcast or hearing me as a speaker, the podcast is Be That Lawyer. We're coming up on 150 episodes. It's all about helping lawyers to take things to the next level. So I'm focusing on interviewing marketing experts. I'm interviewing lawyers that are very successful. I'm interviewing anyone I can get my hands on that gives great advice and tips on how to continue to grow that practice, live a better life, have that stronger balance. If you're meeting me for the first time or hearing me speak for the first time, my business has been around since 2004. Fretzin Inc. Now focuses exclusively and has since 2008 on working with individual lawyers to help them grow their law practices. I'm a business development coach and trainer. And I only do two things. I help people putting them through a very MBA style, very rigorous 7, 8 month program, MBA style, like really getting in the weeds, teaching business development skills and helping people get to the next level with that. I also do peer advisory groups where I take lawyers that are already successful, ambitious, and help them work as a group, as a team with each other to kind of get things to the next level. I'm not really doing so much coaching and training. I'm more facilitating them, sharing their best practices and sharing their challenges, and they all share their goals and talk about it. And I've got some amazing people doing some really terrific things in those groups. Today, what we're going to do is a little different. We're doing a live podcast. I'm going to be interviewing 3 amazing guests. And a part of that is going to be giving you guys takeaways, making sure I try to squeeze out all the juice to get you every tip and idea that I can in a short 20-minute interview with 3 different folks, 3 20-minute segments. So that's really what's going to happen. You will be receiving a survey at the end after the Be That Lawyer Live is concluded. And what I would really appreciate is if you could give us some feedback. This is our first time doing it. We'd love to know what we could do better. We'd love to know what kind of topics you're interested in. And if you complete the survey, I have a brand new book coming out called Legal Business Development Isn't Rocket Science. And that book is coming out very soon. And I will send you a free copy of the ebook as soon as it's available, which I think is going to be in the next week or 2. So please complete that survey and give us that feedback. And we would really appreciate it. That being said, Greg is moderating. He's going to help and bring up my first guest. And let's get that cooking. And that is Jordan Ostroff. And by the way, Legalese Marketing is not only my marketing agency, they do all of my marketing. So my newsletters, my social media, my website, even getting my graphics and podcasts done and setting up this event has been their doing. And they're just absolutely terrific. They're also one of my sponsors on my podcast. So thank you, Legalese Marketing. And here's Mr. Jordan Ostroff. How's it going, Jordan?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. Just as a quick thing to my other fellow panelists, when you jump back on, you're going to have to reset your phone or your video and audio when you come in from being a guest. So.
Oh, the old reset deal. Okay. Well, they will be prepared for that. Thank you, Jordan. So Jordan, you're a bit of a weirdo, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. Yes, I do. You are traveling around the country with your family, and I think you said you're in Houston, right?
That's correct.
So where have you been briefly in the last couple of weeks?
So we were in Orlando for Thanksgiving and had a wedding in St. Simons before that. So we started out in Orlando, our home base, worked our way up through Atlanta, Birmingham, Memphis, and then came back through Hot Springs, Arkansas, Dallas, Austin, and Houston.
Okay. And why are you doing this, like traveling around the country? That's an unusual thing for a lawyer and a marketing expert to do.
Well, honestly, it's for the content. I don't know if Greg will laugh at that or kill me about it, but basically, I mean, our whole thing has been like, look, when you have all this overarching marketing plan and you've got the right people in the right seats, then you don't have to be totally locked into behind a desk for 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week. And so this is sort of proof positive. My wife's with me. She owns the other half of our firm. She does all the personal injury work at the firm. Obviously, Greg's not with me because we're not family, but he's back holding down home base for the marketing company, and we're seeing how it goes. And so far, so great.
I mean, Greg's like family. He's living in your house, isn't he?
Well, I mean, he's renting it.
Well, living, renting. Okay. Very cool. And so you're a lawyer and you're also a marketing expert, and give a little background on how that all happened and what you're helping lawyers in law firms to achieve on the marketing side.
Sure. So I love the line that I first heard from one of our mutual friends, Allison Williams, who talks about the unconscious competent. And I realized for about 3 years in my firm, I was an unconscious competent when it came to the marketing stuff. And because of that, I made a ton of bad decisions trying to support my unconscious competency. And so thankfully, I credit Greg more than anybody else with really helping me understand the foundational stuff of what I was doing right without knowing why it was right. And then obviously what I was doing wrong because I didn't know that it was wrong. And from there became my firm turning around. From there became us helping a couple other firms in Orlando. And from there became Legalese Marketing, which now works with attorneys, I guess, technically globally. We've got a client or two in Canada. So not just the United States.
Count it. Count it. So let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing out there with lawyers and as it relates to marketing. There's obviously things that you solve, right? Challenges, frustrations, concerns that lawyers have around marketing. Many of them, say, never learned this in law school, and they certainly don't learn it, at the law firm level. So what kinds of things are people coming to you for that you're engaging with lawyers on a regular basis?
In terms of what problems are they having, or in
Yeah, what
terms of
problems?
what?
Yeah, let's talk about their problems. Why not?
I mean, the beauty of this, so we've got 1.3 million attorneys across about 400,000 law firms. I think there's like the same 5 problems. It's either the not charging enough, not having enough cases, not having enough staff, not understanding what you're doing. So maybe it's only that really those 4. I'll leave open an other category for anybody else's problems.
I'll throw in the 5th. They absolutely have no idea how to do business development in an effective way. How about that?
Well, totally. I mean, that becomes a huge issue when it comes to not having enough cases or not charging the right amount because they're undervaluing the relationships and the branding that they're doing. And look, don't get me wrong. I did it for 3 years, and heck, sometimes I still do it to this day, but thankfully I've been better on a lot of those issues. And so it's been really interesting to kind of see those commonalities. And then obviously for us to cater a lot of our service offerings around solving those similar problems.
And I think a big problem too is that lawyers are really stressed on time. And the last thing they want to do is, on top of all the billable hours, the stuff they have to deal with at home, having that balance, the personal, life too. Now, on top of that, they got to do business development. They got to go and do their own marketing and post stuff on LinkedIn and try to stay relevant and write articles and speak and all that. And in many cases, they just can't handle it all. So I think what you're kind of pitching is, hey, look, you can outsource it to a company that gets you. And so let's talk about that. I mean, what the challenges that you're seeing around marketing in particular, what are some things that lawyers could be doing either through you or that they should be thinking about doing on their own that maybe don't take a lot of time?
So the biggest one for me that I hammer all the time is knowing your ideal client. And it's not the door or over the threshold. We're not practicing door and threshold law. If it's personal injury, it's not anybody with a car. Like we don't have the time, we don't have the money, we don't have the budget, we don't have, the opportunity to get in front of everybody. And so the more you niche that down, not just your practice area, but the kind of person with the kind of need that you're working with over and over again, the easier it becomes to make all these other decisions, both marketing and non-marketing related, because you start catering to the experience that your client wants to have from marketing through onboarding, through fulfillment, and then obviously also during the offboarding process.
Yeah. So let's take that a step further. And let's say that I'm an estate planning attorney. Okay. And I'm working with people that, have families and people that are older and everything in between. And I'm not, so who's my ideal client and how do I identify the ideal client and then get prepared to market? So I'd say pre-marketing, how do I isolate that so I know what I'm going to be putting together on my website and everything else that needs to be done?
Sure. So the easiest thing from that situation, if you're already established, you've already got some clients, I want you to make a list of your 5 or 10 favorite clients. Like genuinely I loved working with John and Jane Doe. I hated the Smith family. I mean, whatever it is, really give yourself the specific people. And when you have those lined out, look at the commonalities. Did they come in through the same marketing channel? Are they of similar demographics? Do they have the same jobs? Did they need the same thing from you? And start seeing where those things overlap. That's probably your ideal client. I think estate planning becomes one of the best ones because of what you said. You've kind of got that opportunity for 1 to focus on the brand new parents, or for 2 to focus on the slightly older person or the family of the slightly older person as they make their way into a retirement home or as they get closer and closer to, unfortunately, passing away. And you're going to have way different messaging when it comes to that young family wanting to make sure their kid's protected, if God forbid, versus that older person trying to make sure their parents are going to get treated correctly, or the parent thinking that their adult kids, hoping they're okay. It's going to be different messaging throughout everything and different service offerings and different price points.
Yeah, but does that then sometimes scare the attorney because they don't want to specialize or get that granular like that. I want to have a big net. I don't want to have a fishing line in the water. I want a big net. And there's pros and cons. Can you talk to that?
Sure. I don't know what the pro is because of this con. Again, 1.3 million attorneys over 400,000 firms. You've got to be number one for your client. So when you're looking at that wide net, you're looking at maybe being top 5 for 90% of the population. Well, guess what? They've got 4 other people that they think of higher than you, as opposed to if you really drill that down to, let's say, 10% of the population that you were going to be number one for, you'd have a crazy good firm.
Yeah.
So I understand the fear, but I've never seen it play out negatively when you've really niched down, because what ends up happening. So better example, I think, comes from my wife, personal injury attorney. So she's in BNI. Every week she talks about a client who got hit by a UPS vehicle, a FedEx truck, an Amazon Prime vehicle. So now for the next week, every time people see those vehicles, they're thinking about her story. Is that the one that hit Heather's client? Is that the one that did it? So when they come to give those referrals, a lot of times we get the, hey, I know you want people hit by that, but I had a buddy who was T-boned by a semi. Would you do me a favor and take the case? Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, if we were like, well, the people in a car and this and that, the other, like, are you really going to be that number one in somebody's mind when it comes time for them to refer somebody, or when it comes time for them to hire a lawyer? That's what you've got to focus on.
Yeah. I'll give a quick specialization story, if you don't mind. I was
in
a terrible plane crash. Some people know this about me. It's on my profile, and some people have heard the story. It's always better over a beer. I think I may have shared it with you guys when you came to Chicago. But I had both of my arms broken, so I had no use of my arms. And my dad pushed a phone to my face. He said, talk to your lawyer. His name's Bob. And everyone in Chicago should know, if I was in a plane crash and I'm talking to Bob, everyone in Chicago would say, oh, that's got to be Bob Clifford. Well, why Bob Clifford? Well, because he is the aviation guy in Chicago, maybe nationally, for airplane crashes, right? So my dad didn't have to go through the yellow pages. This is back, in the 90s. He didn't have to go through talking to other people. He's a lawyer. He knew right away who's the best lawyer in Chicago to handle my son's case. Boom, phone pushed to my face. So it really does work that if you can get the guts and the will to specialize and pare it down, you're going to see the benefits.
And look, I'm not telling, if we were talking to Bob on day one of him becoming the airplane lawyer, I'm not telling you to say no to the cases that don't fit that going forward, or for the next week or the next month or the next year. But when it comes to spending money on marketing, when it comes to spending the time and effort for business development and networking, focus it on what you want to build towards, focus it on that niche, focus it on that specialty. And that's where you're going to get that long-term success.
And you said something earlier. I mean, if it's something that it's a type of person or type of work you enjoy, if it's something you've done a bunch of before and you know that there's an opportunity to really focus on that and get more, like, it's not right. Like, I didn't start working with lawyers day one, right? I started working after, I think it became about 80% of my business. And then I pushed all my chips in at that point. So I think that you got to have, for some people, it's going to be a tipping point that they realize, if I just really focus, I can make it a lot bigger.
Absolutely. I mean, otherwise, again, if you're not number one in somebody's brain, whether it comes to hiring or referrals, you might as well be last.
Yeah. So I think that's a really great kind of takeaway tip, is to really consider interviewing your clients, figuring out like how you can pare down and specialize even more than maybe you currently are. What would be another sort of do-it-yourself marketing tip that you could share that maybe lawyers aren't kind of focusing on now, but could be?
Sure. So personal branding on social media. I was speaking to a group through Zoom, about 20, 30 lawyers, and one of them thought he had me. He's like, so you're telling us we've all got to be Kardashians? And I think he thought I was going to step back. And I was like, no, you know what? I am. Because here you've got somebody charging, $500,000 for one Instagram post because of having a great audience, because of having a great brand. And so even if you're a, true solo, even if you've got almost no money to spend, the social media platforms are free. You're not going to get the same exposure without paying for it or hiring an expert. But really sharing the stories to the extent that you can with confidentiality on social. And you can target it towards other lawyers for referrals or for branding. You can target it towards referral sources who aren't lawyers. You can target it towards clients. You can look at all those different things, but that's a really easy way to talk to a ton of people at scale. Obviously, you then build the real relationship off of it. You do the business development, you do the one-on-ones, you build a connection. Don't expect, a million people seeing a post to be a million people who, are going to hire you. but it's an easy thing to do yourself that you can do pretty much any time of day. You can schedule a lot of the posts with free programs. You can put them out when need be. And you can stay top of mind with people that already know about you, have heard about you here and there, and really will make the determination that you are the perfect fit for them.
And I don't think hey, I made super lawyer in sort of the bragging rights on stuff is the key here, right? I mean, there's things that you should be posting that are going to get you a lot more momentum and social media, right? We're looking for that engagement as a part of it. So within this topic of branding and social media, are there 3 specific types of posts? Let's just use LinkedIn as an example that you would recommend, as these are the kind of the 3 things like I found to be successful in branding myself, or for lawyers to brand themselves. And you guys do that for me. I mean, so I think you have some real clarity on this.
Sure. I mean, at LinkedIn, I'll give you types, because obviously LinkedIn's mostly text-based. You can put videos up there, but the exposure on it's going to be a lot different from the platform. So on LinkedIn, we're talking text-based posts. So literally just writing. And it goes back to stories. Since we have been cave people around a fire, we have shared stories of taking down I'm going to say woolly mammoth. I may be way off.
Let's do it. No, let's
sure,
do
whatever it is. I mean, and that's what it is. So today it's, taking down Disney on a big case. It's going after, another business that was trying to steal your client's stuff. It's helping somebody avoid being sent to prison for the rest of their life, whatever it is. Obviously, again, we have ethical obligations. I totally understand that, but there's a way to craft a story, or there's a way to combine multiple stories so it can't be found out to be a specific client, or it's something that's public record anyway, that you can tell. And you go into these things, and then you intersperse in those stories 2 other things, at least. Testimonials from the client, because no attorney is going to get online and say, I'm okay. I'm all right at what I do. Everyone's going to say, I'm great. We're the most aggressive. We get the best results. Here's all my $10 million verdicts. I'm not going to show you any of the 0 defense verdicts, but whatever. So testimonials from clients, so people know that you're actually good at what you do. And then you share some sort of personality. So you've got stories about cases, you've got testimonials from clients, and you've got personality. I don't care what your personality is. I hope you have a personality. I know law school spends 3 years trying to ruin it from us. Obviously, you can see me in my bright orange Hawaiian shirt with a matching wall, which I did not paint. This was in the Airbnb to begin with. But whatever it is about you, because again, 1.3 million attorneys, 400,000 firms. If they want, in my case, the middle-aged white guy, they're going to have a million options. But if they want the one wearing a Hawaiian shirt, they want the one who's a Dolphins fan, they want the one who's on the road with his 3-year-old sharing those moments, they've only got me. And those little things become the differentiator. And don't get me wrong, you will piss people off. You will drive people away. I get messages all the time. You're not professional enough. I would never trust you with this, whatever. Cool. Great. Because there's, thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars coming in from people that feel the opposite, as opposed to if I sat here and looked like everybody else, I'd be doing way less well. I'd be getting fewer, I don't want to say hate messages, because they're genuinely, I don't have a troll on the internet yet. Right. Yeah, totally. Look, it'll happen. I'm fine with it. Greg volunteers to do it every now and then when he's not doesn't have too much bandwidth. But yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. It's you become a magnet, and you focus yourself on attracting the people that you want to work with that make sense, and you focus on repelling the ones who don't. And you have to be okay with both of those things.
I think the key word that you didn't say, but I'm going to take everything you said and put it into one word. It's authenticity. We need to know who you are. We want to trust you because we get to know you. So people listening to my podcast get to know me. People listening to your podcast get to know you and how you really are, right? That you can tell through someone that's full of BS and someone that's being real and authentic. And I think you're writing on LinkedIn, podcasting, the way you represent yourself. Obviously you want to, capture people and be liked and all that. But if you can do that and be authentic and get both, then even better. But what does that word mean to you? And obviously you're one of the most authentic people I know. But how can a lawyer who's maybe a little stiff, starch on the collar, how does that person chill out?
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't know the easy answer. Cause it's really one of those things where just try it. Yeah. If there was a video, TikTok or reel that was going around that was I spend so much time in the office that the maintenance crew thinks that I live in my own office. And it was this attorney bragging about it. And finally, after a number of those, she did a thing where she was dancing in the office at 9 o'clock at night. And the results that got versus, the complaining about it was 100 times the difference because it was a little bit of humor. It was a little bit of an understanding of the situation. And even still, like at her core, that video is me dancing in my office super late because I've been here the entire day. So it didn't detract from whatever message she's trying to convey with, always being working. So just let a little out and see what happens, whether that's that one picture at a bar, whether that's your favorite sports team, whether that's taking a strong stance on dogs versus cats. I don't care, see what happens.
I'm sort of like walking the line. Like I'm authentic on my podcast and I am with my clients and in most ways, but like, I'm not doing that, hey, like, I'm driving my car and here I'm driving my car. Here I am out at the park. Like I haven't crossed over that like road yet, but I don't know if that's just a matter of time anyway.
But yet, hold on, Steve, before you move on from that though, the number of people that know you that talk to me about the sports that you all play, what is it?
Platform tennis?
Platform tennis. That's what I hear about you more than anything about work from the people that we know in common. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
I don't even talk about it that much. Maybe I am and I don't realize it.
Well, then maybe I brought it up and they confirmed it. So for those of you that don't know, Steve is like an almost professional platform tennis player. So
and everyone in Chicago that knows me is going to take offense to that because I'm not, but I play at a fairly high level, but if I was to play against a bunch of actual pros, I get destroyed. So I'll put it out there, but it's a weird sport outside in the winter in Chicago, running around on a small tennis court surrounded by chicken wire. Look it up on YouTube, platform tennis, paddle tennis, and you'll see what we're talking about. So let's wrap up with if people want to reach out to you, they want to learn more about Legalese, and I can't say enough about Greg and you and the team, how much you guys have done for me and the clients I send your way. How do they get in touch with you?
Thank you. I'm honored for that. Honestly, the easiest thing, we're talking about LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. There are only 2 Jordan Ostroffs in the world. The other one is a salesperson in Boston who gets like 100 job offers a year that they send to me. So dude's doing something right. The other one's me. I'm the attorney. And I'm posting at least once a day on LinkedIn. We really have the entirety of LinkedIn surrounded around trying to help firms get to that $500,000 a year gross revenue point so that they can bring in some experts to help take them to the next level.
All right. Well, listen, man, you're a rock star. I don't say that about everybody. So actually, that's the thing I got from my father. I don't compliment easily. My wife drives my wife nuts because she's like hungry for compliments on stuff. And I really have to be impressed with something to actually open my mouth and say something. And you guys absolutely crush it. So I appreciate all you do.
You got to read the 5 love languages. That's the best thing my wife and I have done for our marriage was reading that book. And there's a business version because obviously like a personal touch is not one they want you to do in a business setting, but.
All right. Well, listen, if people got nothing out of our interview, they could say, hey, I got the 5 love languages book. I'm going to go pick it up. So we have that going for us. Right, Jordan?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. And let's keep things rolling. We've got another terrific guest coming on board, joining us. She's probably going to have to update her video and audio and everything as she comes on. But this is someone that I have near and dear to my heart for a number of reasons. But I am an Illinois State Redbird. All right. I'm proud to say that I was down in Normal, Bloomington, Illinois for maybe a year more than I should have been. Let's just say not the best student. But apparently it doesn't matter. You can be successful even if you weren't the best student in the world. And Chelsea Williams is my friend. She's down in Bloomington, Illinois, and she's a superstar with the numbers, helping law firms really get their act together. How's it going, Chelsea?
I'm doing good. No complaints my way.
Yeah. All right. Welcome to Be That Lawyer Live. Happy to have you. And do me a favor and just share a little bit about your background and how the heck you got into working with lawyers and working in the numbers.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And before I start, I just want to agree with you. Jordan is a total weirdo, but he's so much fun to follow. Like if you don't follow Jordan on Facebook and Instagram, like go follow the dude. He's so much fun to watch.
He's my kind of weirdo. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's certain types of weirdos and he's my kind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here. So I've been doing this like numbers whispering thing for like 12 years now. I fell into it by total accident because when I was in high school, the only thing they preached to us is they needed someone to go to healthcare because the baby boomers were getting older and they needed people to take care of them. So they were like, guys, go to college for healthcare and help us out. So I was like, okay, I'll go to college for healthcare. And I ended up taking, it was like healthcare administration, and this accounting class fell on my schedule. And I'm like, what is that? Like, does it have to do with computers or numbers? I have no idea. So I made them.
I think we lost your audio. Uh-oh.
Oh no.
No, you're back. Go back
Am I
5
back?
seconds. Yeah, you're back. Go back 5 seconds.
Go back 5 seconds. Okay. So accounting. Did you hear me
Well,
say?
no, you went into healthcare.
Yes.
And
So I went
yep.
to healthcare administration,
Okay.
and this accounting course fell on my schedule, and I had no idea what the heck accounting was. And so I made the mistake of asking people what accounting was. And all I got was, oh my God, I hate it. I've had to take it twice, and I changed my degree because of it. And I'm like, damn it, I'm going to have to change my degree. But I ended up taking the class anyway. That was not a mistake, because me and numbers, we have an understanding and we get each other. And I'm like, okay, if 80% of people hate this, I should probably run with it. And so I did. And I made my way to a local tax and accounting firm here in town. I was vice president for 4 years. And I joke about that's where I learned what not to do, because there's this kind of industry thing that happens with accounting and working with a bookkeeper, accountant, tax preparer for many reasons. But generally speaking, it's a very reactive experience between accountant and tax preparer and business owner. So when I created Core Solutions Group a little over 4 years now, I'm like, okay, I'm going to break the stigma. Like, we're going to be proactive. We're going to help people look in their front mirror instead of the rear view mirror, and actually be able to read an income statement instead of just go cross-eyed trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into it.
And then how about the lawyers? I mean, that's a weird thing. Like, I got into lawyers because of the recession in 2008, when the phone stopped ringing and they were like, well, now where am I going to bill hours? Like, things just weren't the same. And they kind of pulled me kicking and screaming into the industry, and I've loved it every minute since. How did you get into working specifically with law firms?
Yeah, so to be honest, I was reluctant because I had that consumer mindset of lawyers are jerks and they're just out for money. That's what people think, right? But I
Not
started.
all of them, but there's a stigma that's out there for sure, and for some of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's true. It's a real thing. It's the truth that we can own, right? So I decided to do my own research and not follow they, because they led me into healthcare, and here I am in accounting, right? So I did my own research, and there are definitely financial nuances. There is opportunity for a niche in the legal space, things like three-way reconciliations with IOLTA, right? But what I really found interesting is that there are a lot of parallels between the tax and accounting world and the legal world, right? So we deal with government agencies who are slow to respond, slow to react, right? Therefore, we take on this mindset of technology avoidance, evolution avoidance, right? We get stuck in kind of the old school way of things. And so that type of thing. So that mindset and understanding, even billable hours versus flat fee pricing, the two industries are just very similar on a lot of different levels. So I could really resonate with what the law firm owner was going through because of those similarities.
Yeah. And I mean, think about it. I mean, where are lawyers learning about P&L statements, income statements, any of the numbers in law school? I mean, it doesn't really exist. I mean, I talked to a professor recently, then, some of their laws, they've never written a check. That's just, there's, the numbers aren't being talked about. And then if they happen to go into a solo or small firm setting, I mean, it's basically, figure it out on your own. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing with law firms where the numbers could give them answers, but they just don't know how to read them? What are the things that they're struggling with?
I think it really boils down to visibility, actually having a set of books that is correct, because garbage in, garbage out. And I'll tell you, I see a lot of law firms trying to DIY their way through QuickBooks or something, an accounting platform, and they're making their decisions based off numbers, but those numbers aren't right because they don't know how to do a reconciliation and all the technical things that go into producing those financial statements. And the second thing I'll say is that law firms are not doing a well enough job in their chart of accounts. So if you don't know what your chart of accounts is, your chart of accounts is what dictates what you see on that P&L. For example, we're sticklers for making sure that you're very detailed in your chart of accounts. So instead of seeing just revenue, let's break it down by matter type, right? Let's see which practice areas, which matter types are contributing to your top line revenue, because numbers are a reflection of operations. I can tell you a heck of a lot about what's going on in your law business outside of the numbers, right? And, just like Jordan was saying, when you have a marketing strategy, you want to speak specifically to your people. So if you know that you're a family law attorney and uncontested divorces are your number one revenue generator, and you can see that in the numbers translate to things like marketing strategy.
I mean, I'll tell you how bad it can get. I have a client, I won't mention any names, who got some, her numbers looked at by a professional like yourself, Chelsea, and basically said, look, I mean, you should leave. You should leave the firm. Like, cause the way that this firm is run, it's going to take, 5 to 10 years for them to get on any kind of like better path because of the way the money was being spent and the information that was in the numbers that my client had never seen. She'd never seen the numbers and looked at the numbers that way. So I think what you're saying is really, really important. And so let's talk about what lawyers that are listening, again, some are solos in small firms, some are at a big firm where maybe the numbers aren't that important to them. Maybe they just need to look at their numbers. But what are some of the specific things that you're looking at that they should be looking at as well, whether it's DIY or not, that would be helpful to them?
Yeah. So, there are some industry kind of standards, some numbers that all law firms can aspire to, or at least give them as a benchmark, right? And I'm not one for cookie cutter solutions. I think you really have to understand what's going on. But when you're looking at your financials, like your numbers tell a story. They tell a story of your firm in terms of your margins, heck, even your team. And when you can see, so for example, the industry standard with payroll, which varies based on situation, obviously, is like 65%, right? Payroll could be something like 65% of revenue, right? So looking at that and translating it to operations, and I think that's the biggest thing between the numbers, because like you said, a lot of people have never had these conversations. Heck, I was talking to a client who's getting ready to retire and sell his law firm off to someone who's been working there for 20 years. The other person never has ever seen the numbers. He has never hosted a conversation. And let's think about why, right? Because this is not something that's normalized. It's not just law school that's not teaching us about the numbers. It's school, it's life. And our parents weren't taught, so they're not teaching us. An interesting fact, by the time you're 5 to 7 years old, you have already established 50% of your core values and beliefs. So what I like to tell people is think back to when you were 5 to 7 years old. What is your experience with money? Because I think that before you get into the technical know-how of money, you have to observe what are your beliefs around money. For example, I grew up and my dad was a semi driver. He worked like 80 hours a week. I hardly ever saw him. He would wake me up at 4 a.m. for oatmeal and he would read me a book before I went to bed. And those were like the 2 times that I saw my dad. So growing up, money was a scarcity resource for me. And my belief was that you have to sacrifice the things and the people that you love in order to get it. So, I think stepping back even from the numbers and figuring out how am I approaching my numbers?
Yeah, but I'm a Gen X, so money, you just didn't talk about it. I never knew how much my dad made, never asked. I mean, it was only when I was older as an adult where he would tell me about this great year he had because he got a referral, personal injury referral that came his way and had a big year. But, but my son, 14, 15, he wants to know how much I make, how much my wife makes, what is our house worth? Like he's got all these questions and we want to have open conversations with him about money. And I think he now understands money better. He cares about money. He's interested in how it all works and what the value is of things, and appreciates also, by the way, when I spend money on something, it's not for nothing. He gets that I had to work hard for that. So,
yes. Yeah.
But let's go one more point about the numbers. 65% payroll ballpark, are there some other like standards, that ballpark standards that somebody that's listening could say, I never really looked at my numbers, but now that I hear it from Chelsea, yeah, 65%. Yeah, that's fine for payroll. What are some of the other kind of, I don't know, key performance indicators or statistics that you could share?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing I want to say about that is, like I said, this is so subjective to what you're doing. Like right now, especially post COVID, a lot of law firms are going remote. They don't even have some of the overhead that they used to when they had a brick and mortar, right? But marketing is another one I get a lot of questions around, saving and net profit, right? So with marketing, people ask, well, how much should I be spending on marketing? And here's what I know. Now, I am not Jordan. I am not a marketing expert, but I know
say it as high as you can so Jordan smiles.
But look, there's two ways to go about marketing, right? I'm not going to tell you to go spend 10% on marketing, which is a broad general industry number, by the way, 10%. I'm not going to go tell you to spend 10% of your revenue on marketing until you recognize that you have metrics, marketing metrics, right? So the numbers aren't just in money. The numbers are everywhere. You have to be able to track your lead source, your consultation rate, your conversion rate, right? And all of these things, because as far as I'm concerned, there's two ways to market. There's a slot machine method, which is where you're putting a coin in and you're putting money in and you are just hoping and holding your hands out like somebody hire me, right? But then you have this vending machine method. Now you can only get to this vending machine method if you track your metrics, and you can't measure what you can't see. So don't trust what's in your head. That's a mistake a lot of us make too. Oh, I know what's going on. It's all up here. Probably not. But the vending machine method, when you're measuring and seeing what's happening, is I put $1 in and I get a candy bar out, right? So something to think about before you even go and talk about a marketing budget is a formal marketing plan. And how are you going to collect that data? And, a lot of times what we're seeing is, because there's a law out there called Parkinson's Law, and it says for every increase in revenue, your expenses will meet or exceed that increase in revenue within 6 months, unless there is a specific force put against it. So in more cases than not, when I'm looking at a budget with the law firm and I say, okay, well, let's start with the industry general number of 10%. Oh, we don't have it because we're spending it all. Right. So at which point I would say, well, what can you start with? Right. Can we get $200 over there? Can we get $500 over there? And incrementally increasing it once they get that direction, once they can see the data and that data tells them, hey, you should lean in this direction. Right.
Yeah. And also this goes back to talking to someone like myself and Jordan, where, if you're spending money on marketing or energy on business development, we always want to look at what's working and what's not. And if you're someone that has 200, 300, 400 clients and you're not leveraging that and you're spending a ton of money on marketing to try to find new people, but you haven't leveraged and harvested the potential referrals that you could get from your existing base or your strategic partners, or, the work you've already done, like these are things that we need to talk about. And that's going to work within what Chelsea's talking about to make sure that you guys make good decisions about how you spend your money and what's going to provide the greatest return on investment. And I'm always telling people, do less. And they go, what? You mean you should say do more? No, do less. Be more focused and be more specific about what you're going to do and how you're going to bring in business versus a shotgun where you just, hope that something hits something, which is that slot machine, which you're talking about, which is awesome. So anyway, I mean, in kind of wrapping things up with our dialogue, what are, kind of final thoughts on how firms can get really smart about how they look at their numbers and how they decide how to maybe grow or maybe retract and make good decisions?
Yeah, for sure. So, again, you can't measure what you can't see. And what's in your head is probably not what's happening in real life. Folks are 80% more likely to attain or come close to hitting a milestone or goal. And I don't like the word goal anymore, but if they write it down. And so my biggest suggestion today, especially because it's December, the new year is coming, right? Put it on paper. What are you trying to do next year in terms of revenue, in terms of your team, right? Put it on paper, what you are trying to do. Create that budget. A lot of people cringe when they hear that word, right? Budget. But here's the thing. You don't have to get it spot on. If it was that easy, that just wouldn't make sense. Find a place to start. And the key, as with anything else, is with the follow-up. Get some rough numbers out of your head, put them on paper, collect the data, measure the data, compare it to what you thought, learn and adjust. And all you got to do is rinse and repeat, and practice makes progress.
I mean, if we want to go back to Jordan's segment, I mean, he's talking about finding that ideal client and then targeting to get those ideal clients in. Then you're talking about looking at the numbers and measuring what's going on so you can manage it, see what you have to do. And then you're talking about putting a plan together to actually make 2022 a better year. I'm working with my clients, Chelsea, all the time. In fact, I had a great planning session with one of my roundtable groups where we talked about what the objective was for 2022. What are the core strategies or the main focus points of business development and marketing that each of them are going to do? And then we want to work in the tactics or the actionable things that need to happen daily, weekly, monthly to accomplish the strategies. Accomplish the tactics at the bottom, right? Make those happen, the strategies happen, and then the objective gets hit or met. And so this is not rocket science, as I say in my new book, but it is fundamentals, blocking and tackling that you and I and Jordan are talking about. And lawyers just need to not think about everything. They need to think about just getting really granular on focus.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And your numbers tell a story. And the truth of the matter is you are the author, either passively or proactively. So it's like, which one do you want to choose for 2022?
Yeah, right on. People want to reach out to you, Chelsea, and they want to learn more about what you're doing to help law firms get those numbers organized and take things to the next level. How do they reach you?
Yeah, so the easiest place is the website, yourcoresolution.com. And up in the corner, you'll see all of our social media links that you can follow us on.
Yep. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you for being on the show. Be That Lawyer live today and sharing your wisdom. And wow, I mean, just like with Jordan, I've got a page of notes here that, hopefully if you're listening, you're taking some notes and thinking about, little things that you can do that you're hearing that are going to make a difference for you in developing, growing your book of business or building out your firm, et cetera. We have one more guest that's going to be popping on in a moment. And this is an individual I've known for many, many years. And I like to think of myself as a pretty well-established networker. I've written a book on the subject called The Attorney's Networking Handbook. And sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough, or maybe I'm not being as good as someone else. And who is that someone else? Well, that's going to be my friend, Michael Norton. How's it going, Michael?
Good, Steve. I only got the very end of "You Want to Be Me," but otherwise, unfortunately, when it was flipping over, I was not able to hear the full intro. So,
I was talking very negatively about you, and
clearly,
obviously, you're a terrible person. No, I'm just jealous that you have a 4-month-old and I have a 14-year-old, and you're getting to enjoy all the cute little faces that the baby makes and all those little, gurgly noises. And I was telling Chelsea, my 14-year-old is just like, I'm the dumbest guy on the planet. Like nobody's dumber than me. And I'm like, I think I do all right. I've got some books out. I'm helping lawyers. I'm talking to smart people all the time. They think I'm smart. Nah, not the 14-year-old. So
I
my wife and I
understand.
have
People ask me how it's going, and I tell them I make mistakes every day.
Yeah.
And it is you learn by doing on this and this job, the parenting job, and I'm sure I made 3 mistakes yesterday that I don't even know I made. So I think I'm humble enough on that front to know that I actually am making the mistakes. It's not, I know I'm not doing everything perfectly, but I'm doing my best job, and I'm trying to learn from folks like you who've raised children successfully, and just take what I hear and take what's worked for everyone else. But
so
to that point, you can just apply that directly to this, right?
So we can have the conversation. What's more challenging, raising kids or being an effective networker? And I think we'll probably go with
that is and I think what you'd have to drill down to is the definition of effective networker. I think, one thing I get from some of my coworkers is, Mike, you're the extrovert, right? And for those of listening and who have not met me before, I'm a former lawyer, but I work with a investment bank and valuation firm now where I run business development. And a lot of my coworkers are very analytical folks and they're just naturally introverted. And I don't think extroversion versus introversion actually makes you an effective networker, right? I think it's
I will share. I work with a lot of extroverts and I work with even more introverts. I mean, we're talking people that if you make eye contact for more than, 10 seconds, their head will explode. So what I know introverts love is they love not having to wing it. They love a good process. They love being told what to say and do. And if they can follow direction, which is sort of their jam, then they can learn how to be an effective networker and get so much more out of it and not feel that angst and that anxiety about what to do, what to say, what to be, and all that. And I think that's really critical, is that everybody could improve, and it always works better with a process, which, by the way, is going to be a great segue to interviewing you. But before we get in,
I totally agree.
all right, well, you're going to agree even more when we get into the weeds, because I know what you're going to talk about, and it's killer stuff. Do me a favor though, because you're not working at a law firm. You're not at like you're not like a business development coach on networking. You work internally at a company, but you network with a ton with lawyers. So talk a little bit about your background, just so people have an understanding of where Mike comes from.
Oh, yeah, just a comment. Nice to see you too, Nancy. No, I am a recovering attorney, some would say. My background's very unique from my where I am now. So I actually taught high school out of undergrad. I did the Teach for America program, then went on to law school, and went on to work with one of your biggest devotees, Neil Dishman at Jackson Lewis. So I found very quickly into practicing law that I was not carved out to be a litigator. But I also found that I had a unique skill set in which I was good at the business development piece of the business, and felt that I didn't need to bill X thousand hours a year in order to highlight that skill set. So went out on my own, tried to figure something out, and actually lucked into this role. I bumped into our president while walking my dog, and I'd actually known him for 20 years, and my firm was looking to launch a business development arm. They had never actually had an internal business development piece, and one thing led to another, and they hired me a couple months later. So it was I was quite lucky on that front, but it was figuring out a way to use the skills that God gave me to make money and to enjoy what I was doing versus I did enjoy working with Neil, don't get me wrong, but I was not cut out to answer discovery. So that got me to where I am. And even though I'm developing business within the financial sector, you are correct. I network with lawyers all of the time because lawyers are one of our chief sources of referrals. So I get to witness, what I feel are good and bad networking skills within the legal context. From formally doing it and now actually just actively being within that world. So so that's how I got to where I am.
Yeah. And I remember coming up, eventually getting into legal right around, again, the recession in 2008, and your name kept coming up. And I think I may have attended an event that you ran, and I was like, who's this guy, Mike Norton? And eventually, I finally got the hang of networking with lawyers and being effective at that. But let's just talk more generally. What are some of the challenges that lawyers have, putting our own businesses aside, with networking? Why is it so hard for them to be efficient with their time and want to do it and be like, really, really to excel at that skill? What are the challenges?
Well, one, it's I'd say generally speaking seen as a burden within the profession, and it's because I think everyone will use the sales business development. It was never taught in law school. Yeah. Too many lawyers I've interacted with, especially younger lawyers, think it's going out to networking events and that's how I'm going to generate clients. It's like, no, that's not developing business. Both Jordan and Chelsea highlighted very, very concrete things that you want to look at when you're driving a process. And that is the, one thing I know that when I sat down with Neil Dishman, there's a process about going about bringing in new clients, and you can be very, very successful by doing that. But being intentional is just something that it wasn't really put out there as part of my interview process, right? And that is something that I've sat with a lot of our technical employees and a lot of lawyers whom I've mentored through various organizations. Is be intentional about the process. It actually. You can block out time in your calendar, and God, that can be, I set up my week while watching Sunday Night Football. I just happen to have my laptop out, right? It doesn't need to be this onerous process, but I think too many see it as this, oh, it's going to be this massive time suck. It's going to be, I just don't even know where to start. So figuring out a starting place and actually being intentional and sticking with it. A lot will start down the path and then get stuck on a case. And it's like, okay, well, I got to work now. And well, that's fine if you want to build 2,500 hours for the rest of your life, 3,000 hours, but that's not how you build a practice.
Yeah. And I think that that's a huge fear, is that, hey, I've done networking, I've been to the events, I've put the time in, I'm not really getting anything out of it. So I'm just going to stop and just focus on the work and then cross my fingers and hope that the world doesn't explode. But you and I are talking directly about the fact that, building your own book of business, having your own clients is one of the foundational pieces of control and making sure that you have that balance in your life. And the lawyers that aren't thinking that way, I mean, no one that's listening to this is here because they're thinking about keeping their head down and just doing the work. I think people are, here because they're interested in hearing, the other side of it, or they're already involved in that. So time blocking, I get it. Being intentional about where you go and what you do, definitely. What are some of the maybe tricks of the trade of an effective networker? What are a couple other, maybe, points that you can make that someone could say, you know what, I just heard that from Mike, and now that I've heard it, yeah, I'm going to start doing that, because that actually makes sense.
Well, one piece I think that is very important is actually creating the network, right? And I think becoming a useful part of the network with which you are creating is something that is overlooked constantly. Actually developing relationships, and you don't need to go to a networking event and get as many cards as humanly possible. You actually meet people and you figure out, okay, how can I help this person? And that comes back to you. It doesn't come back to you 3-6 months later. I just got a huge deal sent to me by an attorney who was on the other side of my building my freshman year of college. I just happened to maintain the relationship now for 20 years. And we weren't best friends. We knew each other in college, but I got into this. I was like, oh, he's a corporate attorney in Milwaukee. I should talk to him. And we just started developing our relationship. We met for beers. We went to a Bucks game, you name it, but it wasn't purely focused on business. So kind of building out that network so that it does then work for you is one huge piece. Kind of two, knowing where to network, and I find far too many, I will point out, I will nudge some of the younger attorneys that are listening or will hopefully listen. I ask them, I'm out there all the time, I'm not getting any business out of it. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? It's like, well, I'm very involved with the Chicago Bar Associations. Okay. And bar associations have a great piece. I just saw a note about my personal involvement with ABA in the chat. They're a great piece of the pie, but if all you're doing is networking with your competitors, well, that's you could be developing a specialization whereby the competitors really do think of you for that one thing, to go back to Jordan's piece. But otherwise, if I'm them and I get something referred to me, I'm going to see how I can do that in-house before I kick it to another law firm and send you money, right? So I point people, okay, where are the clients? Again, knowing this also goes back to, I guess, Jordan's piece is, where are your clients? I'm very involved with an M&A organization called the Association for Corporate Growth. I'm on the board here in Chicago, and lawyers that are involved do get good business out of that, because they're actually networking and they're actually developing that network with potential clients. And that's a huge piece of that pie. If you're going to spend that 2 hours, I try to tell everyone, if you can get somewhere between 30 and 90 minutes of quote unquote business development activities a day, that, if your week can average out to that is really being intentional. And if you're going to spend that, call it a few hours a week, spend it with folks that are going to send you business. Yeah, or that's
That have the potential to. I mean,
exactly.
I think
Exactly.
the word that I guess part of something that I maybe I have a talent in is taking what someone's saying and then putting it into one word, because now this is the second time I've done it. Qualifying. I think that wow, you can get business from anyone, anywhere, haphazardly, and you can
Sure.
network with anyone, the Avon lady, the local car guy, whatever. There's potential opportunities there. Okay. But realistically, though, there are certain types of people, lawyers and outside of law, that are running into business more than others. So for example, I'm not running into divorce situations very often, maybe once every couple of years. So I'm not going to be a great resource for a divorce attorney to get a bunch of referrals from. But if I'm a financial planner who has 200 lives under my umbrella, and
Sure.
every single year 5 to 10 of them are getting divorced, and I need to send them somewhere, right? Because they're asking me, maybe I'm going to be a better person to network with than, I mean, the made up Steve Fretzin than the actual Steve Fretzin. So I think the word qualify is so important. And it's not that we have to discount people. I think everybody has value, be nice, be friendly, but how much time do you want to invest with the wrong people? So what does that word mean to you? And can you take it further than I have?
I agree. To jump on that, the piggyback on that, what I tell the younger professionals that I talk to within our organization, or just when people ask me questions about it, it's creating serendipity, right?
Yeah.
Like people think, that again, you get the 1,000 cards. I got a stack of them right here from something I was just at. And that's going to get you business. Well, maybe, but if you actually put yourself within that world that you want to work in, and you make you create the network within that world, well, they may seem like random referrals, business referrals. They're not. You took the time to develop that network, and then I always like to say I like to be the hub of my network. People come to me for.
Yeah.
They ask me about PR firms. They ask me about website design. They ask me about a lot of things that I don't do. But I've been generous with my network. I've been generous in making introductions that I think are important. And because of that, they are actually, things come back to me. And it's almost a karma-centric type of a networking process, right? And that's going to get you a lot
I like
more.
karma, Mike. I like karma, but not at the expense of every waking hour to get it. Like there's books that talk about building karma, and trust me, I did it. I was meeting 3-4 people a day. I was trying to give them 2-3 leads a piece or connections a piece. And I spent almost my entire day just trying to help everybody else, thinking if I just did enough of that, and it was a great exercise. I built a great network. I had a lot of friends because I helped so many people. But at the end of the day, how much business did it really bring in? I wasn't intentional. I wasn't qualifying. And I think there was a huge misstep in my first couple of years in business that I needed to ramp up how fast I could learn who I should be spending time with and how. And I think lawyers, so the question is about how much time should a lawyer spend doing networking and working on this kind of stuff. And I'm assuming it's going to be, based on, everybody's individual situation. But do you have a feeling about that as far as how much time is the right amount of time or too little?
Yeah. And I don't want people to network just to network. I made the same mistake when my firm brought me on. There was not a playbook. I created the playbook, and the playbook that I ran off of for the first 18 months was wrong. And it was exactly what you just said. It was take every coffee you can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the amount of caffeine that entered my system in an 18-month period.
Not to mention the scratch, right? I mean, you're paying for coffees, lunches, dinners, all these things. The money was just going out.
And I really bought into that. But again, I started forcing myself to be more intentional. And in terms of time commitment, again, if you can average out the end of the week and you have dedicated that 30 to 60, maybe up to 90 minutes a day, so 2.5 hours to 7 hours in the whole week, that's amazing. And I think that's how you can go about doing it. But then when thinking about that, when an attorney's listening and hearing, oh my God, I got to spend 3 hours on a no, I didn't say that. said 30 minutes a day. You could be on the L interview if you're Chicago based and sending out 4 emails to people that have referred you business in the past. That's the 30 minutes I'm talking about. It doesn't need to be all in person. And God, we've noticed in the last 18 months, of course, it doesn't need to be all in person. Heck, we're gonna have a record year from a revenue standpoint this year, and I haven't seen the inside of my office in 6 to 7 months. But it's a function of doing it, actually doing it, and sticking with it. And
consistency, right? Consistency.
Oh yeah, and Chelsea mentioned it when she was speaking. Following up, like, you made this great content. You were intentional. You did it. Did you ever send them another piece of it, of anything? I mean, I've had friends that, we had this great engagement. Who was it referred to you by? Oh, Joe from Johnson & Johnson. Okay, have you spoken to Joe since? And that was referred to you. That was your best. Go back to Jordan said, your best client ever. And who referred you that? Okay. Have you maintained that relationship with Joe? Have you actually continued on? And the amount of times I hear no, or, well, in passing, it's like, well, in passing, that's just silly. Why would you spend 2 hours at a networking event when Joe has referred you the 3 biggest clients of your life? Spend 2 hours with Joe. Okay?
I mean, real quick story, and then we'll wrap things up with your final thoughts. But I had a intellectual property attorney, 300 clients under his belt that loved him. I mean, loved him. He was their go-to for anything intellectual property. He's running around like a madman to this event, that event, everywhere. And I said, he hired me and we engaged. And I said, well, let me tell you something, John. You're done. You're done with all this networking. You're done with all this. He goes, what are you talking about? That's my thing. That's what I do. I go, I get it. You enjoy it. So do it for fun. Go do it for social. But you're not leveraging your clients at all. You're just doing the work they ask you to do. And if they send a referral your way, great. But that's kind of it. So network with them. Network with the people that already know you're great and know a lot of people and would be thrilled to send your name around and make introductions because they already know you. Meeting a stranger and starting from nothing is very hard and time consuming. Mm-hmm. So it's all going to be about the low hanging fruit. But if you have to network, to your point, do it with intention, do it with focus, qualify, etc. Okay. Yeah. Wrapping things up, Mike, take us home. You're the third speaker. Bring it home, man.
Okay, so after you've done all this, I'd say the last 2 talking points that I thought of coming into this was A, do good work and ask for more. If to that person that referred you all that work, it's okay to go back to them. And B, be adversarial, but don't be an awful human being. The amount of people, I think the amount of work that I get just because I'm friendly and I go about doing everything I just talked about but talking to that, being a good person gets me work, and it doesn't, I get it. You want to aggressively go after so-and-so that hurt your client, and you should, but a very short, very, very short story. One of my biggest, the best business development stories I've heard in this industry was a friend of mine in Minnesota was opposite a huge private equity fund in the Northeast. And he did such a good job, and he was very much adversarial because he got a really good deal for his client, but he did such a good job and he was so easy to work with. The general counsel of the other side now sends him 30 plus deals a year.
Yeah.
I mean, he was so impressed. It was like, and there went the rest of his networking. So if you're going to go out there, be intentional. Anyone has questions, I'm always willing to help, and I think that's what
you've always been very open to talking to people about networking, to talk with them about to actually networking with them. Sure. How do people get in touch with you, Mike? They want to network with you, refer you, just say hi to you.
So I'll go with exactly what Jordan and Chelsea said. Go to our website, houlihancapital.com. I'm on the website, but very easy. My first initial last name, M Norton at houlihancapital.com. I will return your emails. I'm very good about that. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And, I love having an opportunity to meet new people, but then again, figure out how we can be helpful. So, feel free to reach out. I try to be an open book.
Yeah. Well, you've always been very gracious to me, and I appreciate you and the
Well,
things that you're
likewise.
teaching people about networking and just being on my show and just being a great friend. So thank you, and stick around because I think we're gonna just see Greg, if we've got some questions from people listening that may want to just jump in, and that question could be for me, for Chelsea, for Michael, for Jordan. We're all coming back. So
Chelsea actually had some great questions that I'd love to let her open up the discussion and just see where that goes from there.
okay, Chelsea, what have you got?
All right, let me look back and see what I have. I remember vaguely, but let me see. Jordan brought up some good comments too. So my first question, why am I not seeing it here? It's like my stuff disappeared.
Was it about how much time for, because I think I did address some of them in talking.
One of them
with
you
Michael.
did definitely address. So Jordan, my question for you was, we heard my take on marketing budget, right? But I'm curious to hear people that come to you and ask you that same question. Like, how much should I be spending on marketing? And specifically for those clients that I pointed out, maybe they only have like $500 because they had to like squeeze room in the budget for it. How can they, start effectively?
I mean, honestly, I'm going to kick that over to one of my fellow panelists here, because I think that when you're starting with nothing, the networking component of it becomes the easiest thing to put in. From my standpoint, business, you start with time and then you work to valuing your money over your time. So.
Yeah. And you have a lot of time at the outset. So, but it is I think I'm a big backwards planner. And I like to plan out as far into next year as possible. I already have a large contingent of my 22 calendar scheduled. And, then I back into, okay, how much resources, how much time can I dedicate to each thing, each group, each activity. So creating that budget, then it's my goal is to bring in X million dollars next year. Well, then if I know and I'm confident I can hit that number, then I think, Chelsea, your 10% numbers good. I'd probably, I mean, maybe this because I'm looking after my own budget, but I would ratchet it up just a little bit, because it does take a little bit of money to make money, but you don't want to put the cart before the horse. You don't want to, someone asked me about a CRM system and I said, well, what are you guys looking into? I was like, we're going to go in, they mentioned, I don't know, it was Salesforce or Dynamics, and they were a 4-person firm. I was like, well, that might be that's like having Formula One horsepower and driving down Ogden Avenue, right? You're never going to recoup that at the very, very beginning. It's just that's too much. Let's start from a place that actually makes sense for your firm.
I'm going to chime in real quick. I mean, an exercise I go through with my clients. Let's say they want to go from $500,000. And in 2022, they want to go to 750. All right. So they want to raise it 50%. So I would ask how much business is automatically coming in next year. And they say, oh, probably 400. All right. So what we need to make up is the 350. And then what's the average client? So if you throw away the whale and you throw away the babies and you have the middle ground average, and you look at how many of those it's going to take to get that extra 350, right? And let's say it breaks down to 35,000 a pop. So you need 10 new clients, new matters. So you need one a month essentially. So what are we going to have to do together from a marketing, a business development perspective to get one additional client a month through the end of the year? And that's another way to kind of figure out how you want to spend your time or what's going to be the lowest hanging fruit to go after to accomplish that. So that's just another way to kind of, skin that cat.
Yeah. And to speak to the reverse question of, people asking, well, how much should you spend on marketing? If you already have that vending machine, the question is not how much should you spend, it's how much can you handle, right? Because if you have a faucet and you can turn it on, the last thing you want is a bottleneck in your team workflow, right? So then you focus on building the team.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think adding more vending machines. I mean, like to Jordan's point, what does a vending machine look like? I love that. I'm just so everyone knows, almost any podcast you hear me ever speak on, again, you will hear me use that vending machine analysis. So that was a phenomenal one. But one thing, our CEO's got a concept he calls 360ing the firm, and a specific accounting firm or whatever, we've gotten good work out of. Well, if everyone knows, they work on their engagements, and generally speaking, there are 5 more people that are very similar. Can you use them to meet the other 4, right? Other 5 people, and create. I've got one firm up in the northern suburbs of Chicago that probably refers me 25 or 30% of my business, and it's just a nice 65, 75 person accounting firm. But yeah, I'll spend much more time with that firm than I'm gonna do walking around one of the social clubs in Chicago. Just is a far better use of my time and resources.
Yeah, really good question. Some great answers. Do we have another question that we want to bring up, Greg?
We are waiting for some more in the chat. But there was another one from Chelsea to Michael, though, that I wanted to go ahead and throw out there. So this was about networking opportunities, and it was really to put a number on it. How much time should lawyers spend networking, and how do they measure their ROI from each of those networking options? I know that with digital, there's some pretty strict KPIs to measure, but how do you do that with really networking?
So again, good question. And I like to keep that 30 to 90 minutes a day. Business development activities is a kind of a good guidepost, because, in a lot of attorneys, they actually met a number that will go to the networking event, and sometimes that, having the drinks beyond the networking event's a good idea, but most of the time it's not. So they're dedicated an hour and a half of their time, and they spent 5. So, but I if you can take that amount of time, and again, it does not need to be going to networking events. It could be posting stuff on social media, like Jordan said. It could be contacting past referral sources, past clients via email. All of those count, and I think that's something that, especially some younger lawyers, should understand, that all those do count as business development activities. They aren't directly billable, and I think from an ROI perspective, you're not going to attend. It's very rare to attend an event and get a client out of it. It does happen. I was at an event in Milwaukee on Tuesday, and I happened to be sitting next to an individual who unfortunately had someone pass away that had invested into his fund, and the estate needs evaluation of that LP position. That was amazing, but it never happens. It's rare. So I always say, if I meet and I've figured out what my definition of a quote unquote good person is. But if I meet 2 to 4 good people an hour, if I'm spending time out of the house, out of the office at those events, that is a worthwhile event, because, well, what did I just do? I split that down. Let's go break it down like some of the basketball coaches do. Well, 60 minutes, 4 people. And that was 60 minutes that I spent marketing. I met 4 good people. And then now I have 30 minutes to follow up with those 4 good people. And it simply needs to be great meeting you at the event, look forward to it, and then probably scheduling something farther out in the future. But that's a great way to keep it from becoming far too onerous of a task. And to that end, automate what you can automate. Not all follow-up can be automated, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, dear so-and-so, and there's this stupid, email that you've never changed ever. I can't tell you how many of those I get, and it kills me.
Yeah.
But if you can automate inputting into your CRM, whatever you're using, automate the scheduling process. I use a technology called Calendly to schedule the vast majority of my phone conversations. That makes things a lot easier, because it takes some of those tasks off your plate, because the lawyers that are listening, you still need to bill what the law firm says you need to bill, right? That's part that. If you don't do that piece of the job, you're not going to get paid, and you're not going to have the job that you can develop business for.
Well, and that's.
Oh yeah, Jordan. Sorry.
So, and the thing along those lines, and Chelsea might jump down my throat, but I think she'll agree with me. So much of what we do, we look at cost as opposed to looking at opportunity cost. And so when it comes to carving out that 30 to 90 minutes, that might be all that you have that you can carve out. It might be too much, or you might have a lot more time. And so when you're looking at where my cases are coming from versus how my cases are being handled for the experience my client has, you may find it being worth so much more money for you to hire a paralegal or an associate to allow you more time to do the networking, to generate more cases, to cover their salary, plus provide a profit. Chelsea's nodding her head. All right. See, I picked up something from you.
No, we're on the same
right,
page.
You're right too. And things too, like, your workflow. If you're an estate planning attorney and you're doing a lot of work, a lot of this networking stuff between the months of November and April, well, that's probably not the greatest idea, right? Because that's probably where you're going to be far busiest, and maybe the email marketing versus the in-person stuff is where you should be going. And I will say that if you are using email marketing, perfectly good, is a great use of resources, but be intentional. I can't tell you how I do a LinkedIn rant every quarter, and this quarter's was, as we've been increasing in-person networking, the amount of introductory emails I have gotten from firms that I know, or even worse, from people that I've known for 6-7 years, where it's like, hi, my name is Chelsea. I was so-and-so in Bloomington. So we were just on a panel together. Take the time to look at the list before you send the email out, because that reflects so poorly on you and your firm, and you're not going to develop the brand, Jordan, that you want your client to develop, right?
Yeah,
totally. And that was, sorry, go for it, Steve.
I was just going to say a great analogy too. I wrote an article about this that I going fishing with my son, and my stepfather's like a fisherman savant, and I do talk a lot about fishing, not as much as paddle maybe apparently, but you're fishing and you're in a spot, and you're there for an hour and nothing's biting. So you change out the tackle, change out the bait, try that. It's still not biting. All right, maybe go, take the boat and go to a different spot. Don't stay there because I know that there are attorneys that stay for year after year after year, and they change things up and they do things differently, and nothing changes. It's not the right place. So you really want to go back to a lot of what we talked about, and make the changes, realize where the ROI is, where it isn't, and spend your time intelligently doing the right things with the right people, and then good things happen.
But Steve, just one case, this will pay for itself. I just need one case out of it. Just one case.
That's it. So, keep crushing your time and hoping that case comes in, right? There's other cases. I mean, there's other cases that are going to come in, but you're spending time with someone that can send 5 things your way every year versus maybe 1 every 5 years. You just have to do the math and realize, you can't be everything to everyone all the time. You got to think about where you're, there's a book, here's another one, a book. You don't have to buy this book. And if the author's listening, I apologize, but Blue Ocean Strategy. I read it years and years ago. And the whole book basically says this: the sea is bloodied red with competition. Go where the blue ocean is. Well, duh, but that's a great way to think about it. You're swimming at the Chicago Bar Association with your competitors or the ABA, or you're just in the same place for too long. Get out of there. Go somewhere else. Rethink things,
Hey,
It's
Steve,
funny that, sorry.
I was going to say, we have a question from Gary asking Jordan, can Jordan elaborate on testimonials of LinkedIn, how to incorporate into LinkedIn stories and posts?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do it. So one, LinkedIn stories no longer exist, or at least they're being phased out. LinkedIn is trying to push LinkedIn Live a lot more. However, at this point, you still cannot go live on LinkedIn straight from your phone. Unlike every other social media platform, you do need some sort of third-party StreamYard, Caster, OBS, something along those lines. So what I'm talking about here, though, truly is just posting it, either copying the text of it and putting a link in the comments, turning it into a quick Canva graphic or something along those lines, like just getting that actual testimonial out there. I don't know. Let me put it to you this way. I think for 99% of us, if our client's only going to write us a review in one place, we want it on Google. There may be some people that would disagree. So I'm not even going to ask for people to do a recommendation for me on LinkedIn unless it's a very specific business connection. So when my client writes the review on Google, I don't want to copy the text on my website because it's SEO stuff, whatever, but turning it into a graphic or posting it on social media and then following it or linking it to the original post, that's what I would do along those lines. So maybe you highlight the best sentence in the post, and I wouldn't be worried about people spelling things incorrectly. That makes it more natural. So if your client spelled a word wrong, go for it, embrace it. It's totally fine. Don't fix it when you're rewriting it.
I can't
I hope
help
that
it.
answers.
There's too much OCD going on. I can't handle something like ending in a preposition or poor grammar. Like I've thought about it. I can't do it. I can't pull it off. I want to make a comment about Gary. Gary's at a mid-market firm. I think LinkedIn, and then if you can get a testimony on LinkedIn from a GC or from a client, and then you can use that for other purposes. But I think for solos and small firms where Google is the big deal, then that's where I think Google would make a lot more sense, because you're looking for those Google reviews when someone's searching for you.
Jordan, do you find, I've just found this personally, is it the case? When there are pictures, you get more views. Yeah, I found when I have a process that I'll take selfies with my clients' logos when I see them out in the world, and those posts just to actually get more views on LinkedIn. Is that just me, or is that actually a strategy?
So it's a great question. For me, my text-based posts do better than anything with images on it. I have heard mixed reviews. So it's going to depend upon the individual audience. At the end of the day, I think a lot of it's probably zigging when the rest of their audience is zagging. So if your audience is a lot more text heavy the whole way through, your photos might stand out. My audience being maybe a little bit more younger, savvier marketer, I don't know. There may be a lot more images going around. So for me, my text posts stand out more. I would honestly try it and do both. LinkedIn does an amazing job giving you some pretty good reporting insights on your own personal stuff. So I would take, 30, 60, 90 days, try it and see where it goes.
Yeah, I would recommend anyone listening, use what you pay for, right? If you paid for the premium version of LinkedIn and you're not using it, why are you shelling out 100 plus a month for that subscription? I mean, I even found out I wasn't fully using it when I didn't realize I was allowed to invite X number of people to my company page each month. I had no idea. I just happened to stumble across that page. It would have been good to know, but if you're going to use those resources and you're going to spend the money, make sure you're actually using them.
That being said, I saw a 15% reduction in my reach when I got LinkedIn Premium, and then when I got rid of it, it went back, which I'm not saying that everybody sees that same thing, but just make sure you are testing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. So listen, everybody, we're going to wrap up. I think Greg is going to drop the survey link in the chat box. We'll also be sending out an email through Eventbrite for that survey. But Michael, Mike, Chelsea, Jordan, Greg, thank you guys for putting this together, for helping me on the panel, for doing the great interviews. I know that the people that were listening got tremendous value. I've got 3 pages of notes on everything you guys have said. And I'm hoping that we can, we're going to repurpose this, make sure we rebroadcast and everything else. But listen, thank you all for being my guest and spending some time with me in the panel today. It's all about being that lawyer, someone who is confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. And anything we can do to help you become a better lawyer, more efficient, have greater balance. That's really what this show is all about. And that's why I'm bringing these great guests to the table. And so take care, be well, be safe, and we will all see each other soon, I hope. Take care. Happy holidays.